welcome to the 5-day Repivot Challenge. Today, it is a privilege and an honor to have with me Alex Rodriguez. And to me, Alex, this is the Alex Rodriguez that's very important, okay? I know that you may have heard of A-Rod or Alex Rodriguez, but he is, on my book, amazing gentleman. And to be honest with you, I cannot say all that he has because he has such a great list. But I just want to let you know, those that don't know you, that you are a author, you're a published author, you have best-selling books out there that they can purchase through Amazon, through many different forms of media. You are a speaker. I just noticed while I was browsing on all the accolades, it's TEDx, right? I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but you have been one of the speakers there. You have a marketing company, Yummy. I mean, who does not like that title? Yummy. And he is also a pastor of the Spanish church, and it's in Countryside, which is in Clearwater, in Florida, Spanish. And not only does he speak Spanish, he speaks Japanese, he speaks Portuguese, he's learning Greek and English, just to name a few. I think the list will continue because I know that you really are a lover of learning. And I love people that are a lover of learning. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. Okay, this is not the tip of the iceberg, but I just want to share my introduction about this amazing man. In that, about a year and a half ago, and this was actually in the process of COVID, I wanted to start a eye care, mobile optical. And so I went through Prospera, which is a nonprofit organization, and they gave me a scholarship. They gave me a grant, and I had the opportunity to do marketing. And as I was interviewing Alex Rodriguez for him being, what intrigued me was the fact that at a very early age, his parents, and they're Dominican, and his parents actually were diplomats that moved to Japan. And he was only a tender age of 10. So I don't want to say anymore because I want to hear from you. And again, thank you for being part of the challenge. And I want just people to know a little bit about you, what you can give us, these gems of wealth of information, not only information, but of life lessons. What impacted me the most is the fact that as a young boy, you went from being in a Spanish culture, and now you're in a totally different environment, the language, everything. You know, at a very early age, you had to repivot. You had to shift because now it's not just only the land, the people, the culture, everything. So tell us what was happening at a tender age of 10.
Yeah. So let me tell you really quickly about what transpired to get me there. I'll be as brief as possible. My father fought in the War of 1965 in the Dominican Republic. Those of you who are Dominican in the audience know that was a very important revolution. And after that revolution transpired, my dad had to run from his home country for his life.
Wow.
Because the president that came into power was basically exterminating everybody that had fought in the revolution, like my father. So my dad was a refugee here in the United States. He had to run from his home country, which is why I was born here in the United States, being from fully Dominican parents. I grew up here in the States until 7 years old, and then my father's political party won the election, so we were able to. He was pardoned, like he wasn't pursued anymore for his life, so he was able to move back with us, with his family, and that was my first pivot because I was born here in the U.S. and then I had to learn Spanish by immersion. I listened to Spanish at home, but I never really spoke it until I got into the island. So then going into school and everything, then my dad was uh, participating in politics, and then he was assigned as head of the consulate, the Dominican consulate in Japan. So that's when we moved to Japan as a family. And I studied in an international school, so it was in English, but as a second language, we had to take Japanese. So I started learning how to read and write Japanese over there. And then when I came back to the DR, I was admitted into a school. We call it Nihongo Gakko, which means a Japanese school that is in the city of Santo Domingo only for children of Dominican parents. But because my dad had served in Japan, they admitted me. It was a grace that they admitted me there. So I was pretty much the only non-Japanese there, and studied there for about 3 more years. So it was a pretty significant immersion. I feel like it's part of my culture, even though I'm not genetically Japanese, but I feel very akin to the notions of honor and respect and everything like that.
That's fantastic. So was there any challenges at that time that you had to face?
For certain, because in the Japanese culture, they how do I say this? So a foreigner, right? A foreigner they call gaijin. Gaijin is the kind of their name for somebody that's not Japanese. So gaijin are seen as interesting people, but not necessarily, people that you would trust or like your friends or things like that. But they're just like interesting people that you kind of want to investigate and learn from. So in order to make friends and build relationships, it was hard. It was quite tough. Obviously, the circle I moved in with my father, I was still obviously very, very young, but that helped. But the fact of the matter is, learning Japanese and the Japanese culture, I mean, it's a completely different way of writing, different characters, everything like that. But it was quite interesting, and I think that both learning Spanish by immersion and then learning Japanese set me off into this path of saying, I can do anything I put my mind to. It's like there's not really anything standing in my way other than my disposition to learn and to adapt to circumstances.
I that right there is amazing, because you know what? You're already at a very early age had that mindset that if I can accomplish this, if I can do this, there's nothing that I cannot achieve. Exactly. And it is a mindset, and it is the disposition. I love that disposition. So it's a determination and knowing, you know what? Yes, is it going to be easy? No, but you are able to overcome it.
Yes.
Now, how has that really? To me, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been like your foundation.
Yeah, in many respects.
That has allowed you, that not only are you learning English, Spanish, Japanese, but now you're learning Portuguese and different languages. Yeah. Now, so once you get there, and I love the fact that all our experiences will allow us to grow.
Yep.
Will allow us to be who we are, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yes, absolutely.
What challenges besides that? Okay, so you have that, you made friends, and trust is always a difficult thing, even in our own culture. Imagine when there are other cultures, not knowing, what our mindset is, because it is about the mindset, and it is about what our priorities and what our belief system is.
Yes.
So you're in Japan, you come back. Then what happens?
Yeah, then I was, I started learning Japanese in the island. And like I said, I was accepted, but it was really difficult because, again, this Nihongo Gakko was a school for children of Japanese immigrants. So they would tailor everything, the discipline, everything toward that. And, for me, I only had, it was a once a week school on Saturday mornings, all morning. But I only had contact with Japanese on Saturdays. The other kids had contact with the language all week.
Right.
So it became very difficult. And then I had to leave the Japanese school, but continued learning kind of on my own pace. So still to this day, I'm still practicing Japanese. I practice 3 languages every morning. Portuguese, which I learned, I would say I was solid fluent maybe 4 months ago. It took me about a year and a half to be fluent.
Right.
Now I'm reading, writing. I'm actually about to publish my first book in Portuguese.
That's fantastic.
And now obviously I still study Japanese, and then I just took on Greek as well. But I think Sandra, the majority of us, when we take on a challenge, I think we take it on with a mindset of being at loss, or like saying, I'm not special enough. This is for a certain type of people. This is for people that have a special ability. And I think I've been through this cycle so many times that I don't even think about that. I don't even think about, oh, am I the right person to do this? Am I, right. It doesn't cross my mind. To me, it's like, here's the goal, let's go,
Simple as that. Simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thrill of embarking on the journey,
right.
rather than saying, oh, I have to check these 5 boxes before somebody grants me permission to do this. It's like, no, let me just do it. I know that whether if I win, if I get the crown, it's going to be great. If I fail, I'm going to learn from the experience. So there's no way I can really fail. Failure is not even a factor. I'm going to come up with some lesson that I'm going to walk away from. It's just going to make me a more advanced, more experienced, better person, I think.
That's fantastic. And it is true what you say, no matter what. And I think it's the fear. People do not do anything because of fear of the what ifs. And the what ifs cannot be, if we allow that to be the stumbling block, we won't achieve anything that needs to be done. We need to, like you said, go for the challenge. You're going to learn regardless of the case that you're doing, and move forward, because there is going to be growth regardless of the case. Now, what made you decide to do marketing?
That's an interesting question. You see, I was actually a musician, a full-time musician for a good part of my life. Yeah, I play classical piano, jazz piano. I also play the electric bass. So music is another passion of mine. I love music theory. Now in my current life, I lead the worship team at the church as well as pastoring. So I do the double duty there. But where I was going with that was when I was working as a full-time musician. This was in the city of Santo Domingo. All out of a sudden, I was contacted by a friend of mine that was working in advertising, and he said, "Hey, listen, I'm working at a place where they're looking for an apprentice, like an intern, and I wondered if you had any interest in this." And I'm like, "Well, I've never really considered it, but I'm willing to show up." And the owner of the facility had me working kind of on a test, like here's a trial run. I'm going to teach you 2 or 3 things, and then you're going to run with it, and then show me what you can do. So he did that with like 8 or 9 young men, and I was the only one that, he said, I'm going to choose you, and I'm going to train you and bring you under my wing. So that was doing video post-production, which was a good part of my professional career, was in video. So then I hopped into different jobs after that. And the second job I had here in Florida was with a kind of an up and coming agency that was willing to do some different things. And this was kind of right at the advent of digital, like Facebook was just starting. Google was just putting its bearings. And And I convinced the staff there, we should pay attention to this digital thing, because I think this is the future, and they decided to go for it. So we opened pretty much, I helped them open a new department within that agency, which was kind of the embryonic stages of a digital marketing agency. So we started with that, and one of our clients was Disney. So we started with a campaign for Disney, and we convinced them, hey, we're doing all this production and graphics, and why don't you let us just do the strategy part as well? They said, hey, you know what? We don't have anybody doing the strategy portion, so why don't you do it? Imagine a company like Disney saying they don't have anybody doing strategy for this particular campaign. It was like, it fell from heaven. So we said, we'll take on the challenge. We built a strategy, and that strategy helped them generate, it was like $3 million in sales in like 48 hours. It was crazy.
Wow.
So that's where, working with these large brands, just trying new things, attempting, things on social, on digital channels, got to a point where it solidified kind of my take on what works on digital. So in 2013, I was able to launch my own business, which is Yummy. Wow. We just turned nine years old. And
happy birthday.
Thank you very much. And, part of what we do is like, we don't offer social media services. Like we know what we want to do and what we don't want to do.
Right.
And one thing we decided not to do was social media management or anything like that. That was just not part of what we do, even though we had a lot of experience. It's like, I'm not going to spread myself so wide to do things that I'm not going to succeed at. So we focus on digital advertising and lead generation. Those are the two things that we focus on intently, because we've found what works. And obviously it's an ever-changing world. Every year, I would say every 6 months, things shake up and change. So we always have to be on our toes, but we have a very unique view on what works in digital marketing.
It's interesting that you said that, because you have to embrace the change and know that what is constant change. And it's being able to flow with that change, because if you don't go with the flow and the change, we see that even with big companies that have not moved fast enough, no longer is there Montgomery Wards, no longer is there, Sears, these IBM, because they did not. Yes. And it's because that's why I wanted you to be part of the challenge, because you do understand the repivot. You had to repivot every single, and now even more so.
Yes.
And to throw in more stuff. Okay, so you're a musician, you speak different languages and all that, but because there was a hunger, there was a determination, you said, you know what, I'm not gonna let nothing limit me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, I would add to that. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, please.
Well, all I was going to say is that, very quickly, is that the reality is that if you stay stagnant in one place, you're actually going backwards, because time, revolutions, technology flows forward like a river. And if you just say, this is my place, I'm going to stay here, you're actually settling with, an expiration date, Wow. So I just wanted to add that to your.
Oh, you know what? Those that are seeing this, write that down, because that is so, so true. Don't settle. You have to flow. I had a very wise lady mention to me that, especially when if the river does not flow, it gets, there's stench and there's, it dies technically. But when the river flows, then there's life. And you have to flow, go with the flow. That's why they say go with the flow. And just to add on to what you've already done, what made you decide to become a pastor?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've been serving in this community for 22 years straight. I walked in and just got involved with the worship team, which was my beginning in ministry was at 14 years old in Santo Domingo in the worship ministry. So when I came here to this congregation, it was just kind of a natural grafting, right? But little by little, and I say this with no pride or anything like that, but there is such a thing as spiritual maturity, right?
Right.
And spiritual maturity is not just spoken, it's demonstrated, right? So I believe I came to a point where I demonstrated enough spiritual maturity to deal with very difficult circumstances, supporting my pastor at the time, right? Where I became my pastor's right-hand man. I was involved in pastoral activities without being ordained, right? But I was in the office with him, counseling. I was dealing with crisis situations, like a lot of very delicate things. And I think through that process, it was clear, how I would handle those things. And then what came naturally was I had a series of callings, and I like to call these, 5 different callings. Number one, the calling of my pastor at the time, which was, here's my mantle. You're the one that's going to succeed me. Very respectful, and he's still a mentor to me. Number two, the board and the leadership at the church. They called me, they tested me, they put me through the ringer. Number three, the calling of the congregation, which was, I had served for decades in this congregation. And if they said thumbs down, I wasn't qualified, but they received me. They said, yeah, it was only a matter of time was the majority of the response there. The fourth calling was the calling of my wife, because I believe in unity in marriage. I believe in that if my wife would have said no, I would not have stepped up. There has to be unity, otherwise there's nothing. And the fifth calling is the calling of God, the Holy Spirit. Not to say that that's the least one, but but honestly, just like Jeremiah had, just like Isaiah had, just like Moses had, I had an experience of saying, why me? I'm not qualified. This is too much. I'm not sure. And my pastor at the time, who was the person who passed the mantle to me, he told me, the reason you're the fact that you're asking those questions is what qualifies you to do the job.
Yes.
Because if you were to say, yeah, I'm the superstar, then we'd have second thoughts. But okay, all right.
Because it's not about us. It's interesting that the life events that we go through, yes, it's for us to learn, but I think the greater gift that we can provide is, okay, what have we learned so we can share with others. And we do it by what we do. You are helping in the business arena, which is so important. You're helping in the church arena, which is the spiritual aspect of it. And now more than ever, especially with us, with everything that has gone globally, we need that partnership, both in so many, in the arts, which you spoke about, with the music. We talk about the language, because the language brings unity together. The food, of course, we talked about that even before we had this Facebook interview. But it's just the fact that it is amazing when we can get it together, because at the end of the day, it's about how can we help others.
Absolutely.
Because we went through so many different things, and we didn't stay there. We could have stayed there. And some people are there and they don't know how to get unstuck. Now, being that, what would you recommend? Because of course you have such a so many diverse things that you have encountered, even the counseling. And I know that maybe later down the road, because when you counsel, especially very delicate situations and with families, and it's been years that you do that, you understand how important it is, the dynamics between the families and between individuals. So what would you encourage others that have been like your grounding anchor
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes without saying, maybe, but I mean, faith is the number one foundation for everything. The Bible calls it the anchor of our soul,
Mhm.
which is it's an interesting picture in Hebrews, because as human beings, we usually try to anchor ourselves to this world, like
Mhm.
anchor, put our feet down the ground and hunker down, and we have all these expressions, but the Bible describes it as the anchor of our soul is eternity. It's in heaven. It's the
Mhm.
greater things. It's the things that transcend us, and that's our anchor. That's it's like we look upward, but it's actually keeps us grounded in a spiritual sense.
It's like an
It's a
oxymoron.
yeah, it's a very interesting word picture, but the more we visualize that, we understand, why it says that we should put our eyes on the things of above. And I take that very seriously, because in my darkest, deepest moments, I
Mhm.
could talk here about my dad passing away when I was only 17 years old.
Oh,
I
wow.
could talk about my wife and I losing our middle child at 3 months of pregnancy.
Oh,
I could talk about,
wow.
opportunity or situations in which I lost a job, or, didn't know where my next paycheck was going to come from.
Right.
It's like everything that has pushed me through has really been that, keeping my eyes on the Lord, keeping my eyes on heaven, and recognizing that, you know, um, I am a preacher, so I apologize if I'm convey.
No, no, no apologies here. Believe me, you be yourself. I'm a teacher at heart, so I like to teach.
Good.
So believe me,
Good.
no. You go right ahead.
So it's just all of these life verses that come to mind, and I think it's in First Corinthians chapter 4, chapter 6. I don't remember very well, but it's where Paul says, "What do we have, or what do I have? What do you have that you have not received?"
Mm,
Right? And it's just so powerful to think about those things in that sense, because we as humans, we're so wired to think about, you got to hustle, you got to work hard, you got to do this. And
right,
believe me, I'm not an enemy of working. I'm not an enemy of, doing what needs to get done. I'm not an enemy at all. I mean, I can tell you stories about me working 96 hours straight without sleeping. I'm no enemy of working.
right,
But I know that at the end of the day, the fruit of my labor is not because I worked so hard, because I sweat, because I did all this. It's by grace. It's
mm,
because I've been given a gift. And when you approach life in that respect,
mhm.
you're able to take the good and bad circumstances and
Yes,
address them with open hands. Because again, if the good things that happen to you aren't a result of your effort, like your direct effort without God's intervention, then that means the challenging circumstances that occur to us
mhm.
are not your fault. You're not unless you've done something that is, that's sinful or bad or anything like that. But if
Sure,
it's something that, you were victimized, or you were insulted, or you were put down, or a lot of people get weighed down by those things, and they need to understand that you're not supposed to embark on this in this life as a victim. You
right,
just have to say, with open hands, this occurred to me, this is part of my past, but this is not going to define me,
right.
because I don't have anything that has not been granted to me, that has not been a gift to me.
I just love the fact of open hands, because when you're open hands, you see, when you have your hands closed, you can't receive anything. And
Yeah,
it's, and also too, open hands means you're letting go. So
yeah,
you're letting go of the emotions, you're letting go of the situations and all that. So that way you can receive something. I
yeah,
love that analogy, and I love
yeah.
that understanding. You know, and believe me, my heart goes to you, because I do understand it a lost, because I lost my son 21 years of age. And so when you do have loss, you cannot replace it, but understanding that, you know, there there's life experience that you can just, I choose to remember the good, the
Yes,
good memories, and I choose to just have that in my heart, and just continue and love even more,
Yes,
because we
yes,
don't know, because tomorrow is not promised.
yes,
And so when you understand that tomorrow is not promised, then you understand that life is precious. And
yes.
love the fact that you said about unity. And with this, I conclude, because of course I know that you have a lot of different things to do. But one last thing, what would you say, and that you want to share with the audience? And again, I would love to get the feedback on people as they comment on what you have said, and what we have talked about.
Yeah.
What's your last few words?
Well, I'm going to share two words that have become almost like, my the first tool that I pull from my tool set,
Mm.
and these two words have helped me push through feelings of being, devalued, or not being enough, or not having enough education, or whatever the case may be. And
Mhm.
these two words are these: shoot high. Now,
Shoot
when I'm talking
high.
shoot high,
Okay.
now I'm thinking of a picture. I'm not thinking about, weapons or anything. I'm thinking about an arrow, right?
Uh-huh.
An archer. So when you do archery
Wow.
and you point at the aim, you're going to miss, because the gravity of the arrow is going to pull it downward. You actually have to shoot high, not just aim high, but actually shoot high above the target, so that when the gravity pulls it down, you can hit the bullseye. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of us, we try to approach life with such a false humility. We're like, oh,
Yes.
I'm not worthy. I can't
Right.
do this.
True.
And we have to shoot high. We have to say, you know what? I'm going to aim high, because the worst that can happen is that I aimed a little bit too high. That's the worst that can happen. Okay, whatever. But
Wow.
the best that can happen is that you hit that bullseye. So I want to leave people with that thought. Whatever you are thinking and visualizing and doing, couldn't you do 10% more? I'm not talking about, again, I'm not talking about effort. I'm not talking about working hard, hunkering down. I'm just talking about vision.
Yes.
Visualizing, can I do 10% more? Can I aim for
Wow.
10% more? Because and then I'm just saying 10%, but obviously,
You could do more.
if you want to go for it, then triple it, quadruple it.
Right.
But 10% is usually a challenge for most people.
Mm.
If you can aim 10% higher than what you're
Wow.
thinking right now, it'll change your life.
Shoot high. Okay, so now I want you to say that in the languages that you know.
Oh, I don't think I can. I don't think I can. I would have to practice that.
Okay. Well, I'll give you shoot high. Maybe we will write it down, and
Yeah,
that way on the
I'll send it
Facebook.
to you via text. But
Okay, that sounds
I'm not.
marvelous. That sounds marvelous.
It takes me a while to switch between languages. So
Oh, believe me, it takes me a while just to switch on to English. Spanish. So no, but that's amazing. Shoot high.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And with this, we'll conclude, because scientifically, they said that I'm talking about one that even the most genius, the highly intellectual, they're not even doing 10% of what the mind can do. Yeah. So imagine when we can do truly and be intentional. My favorite word is intentionality, is being intentional. Do things intentional and shoot high. Yeah. And shoot. So I love, it's not aiming, because aiming is not an action word. Nope. Shoot. So you got to shoot, and you got to let it go. Exactly. But you got to, your focus has to be up high. Yeah. So you have to look at where you're wanting to. Yeah. I mean, we could preach here right now. So
oh man, bring it.
I tell you, shoot high. Oh my God, that's drop the mic. That's all we can do. Yeah. Well, it is a privilege and an honor. Thank you so much for making this interview. You warm my heart.
That's
This
awesome.
is gracias, muchas gracias, molto grazie. I know a little bit of Italian. Molto
That's awesome.
grazie.
Muito obrigado. Domo arigato gozaimashita. Evaristo. That I can
Well,
say in
thank
every
you so
language.
much. You made it such a pleasurable interview, and I'm looking forward for next time.
Yeah.
Well, thank
So
you. Please send my regards to your wife
I
and your
will.
children and your congregation, and of course, Yummy, your all the different things, and wish you extremely success on your launching on the new Portuguese book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing, Sandra. Big hug and blessings to you.
Hi again, and thank you so much. Definitely from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you for being with us today. I also want to, I am so grateful for you, Pastor Alex Rodriguez, entrepreneur and musician, you name it. I am so grateful to know you. And now, we've shared our heart. We share with you our experiences and wisdom. And I believe that there was a lot that was shared that for me, I learned a lot. So now it's wanting something from you. And this is what I'm wanting. It's a call of action, because repivoting starts with you. So I want you to share today in this Facebook community page, however you want to say it. This is a private place that you can share your honest and opinions and what you have learned. And I want you to do just one thing that you learned that you're going to do differently. Because again, the change starts today. The change starts with you. And so we're going to have you share and say what you're going to do differently, what you're going to, what you learn and what you are going to do from today on. We're going to reset, renew, revive those plans, those goals, your dreams for an amazing tomorrow. And it starts today. Los amo, and I will be looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Ciao.